Hey everyone, Karnak here, Serenity Wargaming and Explanations. As you can see, definitely feeling a bit better than I was in my last video. Let's get into video for today. We're going to look at these squadrons, the ARC-170 Starfighter Squadron. Curious as to why the decision was made to make the squadron a bomber, because in most other like materials that I read and like you watch Clone Wars and even if you play like the Battlefront 2 game, like the ARC 170s are fighters, they're not bombers. I guess you could classify maybe that they're heavy fighters, but they don't. I don't know. I just think it's really weird the decision was made to make them slow and bombers when that's not really accurately reflected in canon. But what? I'm not a game designer. What do I know? We're getting off topic. ARC 170 Starfighter Squadron. How do you know for the Republic? To the left of them, you'll see the Republic icon there. Again, if you look at the bottom left hand corner of the card, you'll see their Starfighter icon. Opposite corner, you'll see them for 15 points. Uh, for their bar underneath there, going from left to right, we've got their movement speed, which is distance 2. Hull value is 7, so they are beefy, tanky Starfighter cloney boys. Anti-squadron roll is 1 red die and 2 blue, and their anti-squadron armament, or excuse me, their anti-ship armament is 2 blue die. They do have the bomber keyword, which means that their critical icons on their dice do deal damage, and they're able to resolve critical effect. They also have counter 1. So, ARC 170s, nothing crazy here other than like this is the first bomber that has counter, other than if you were running like TIE bombers and Dengar or something like that. This is the first bomber that actually gets some counter going on for it, which is interesting. I feel like I would have rather have seen that counter maybe on the Y wings, but it's just different things. It's different. It's not necessarily bad. It's just that these are so slow, and again, the same issue with B wings is that unless you have the tech to kind of help push them along, they just get outran by your own fleet, or they just can't catch up to things if they're trying to chase something and it's going fast. Um, but that one thing they do have going for them is that man, they are great all around squadron. I mean, they can dogfight. Essentially they're like V19s. They've got the 3 dice, they have high hull value, they've got counter, they can bomb, they can do all these great things, and I feel like at a very reasonable price point, 15 points. I mean, that's only how many more points more than a V19? It's only 3 points more, and it's essentially 1 speed slower with 3 more health, 2 more health, same anti-squadron dice, but they have a better ability of dealing more consistent damage while bombing. Um, and there's pros and cons to like why take ARC 170s over Y wings over ARC 170s. It just really depends on what your fleet is built and being focused on. So for myself, for the ARC 170, I've seen some people play around with the hyperspace rings with them. Hyperspace rings kind of just like it's just hard to get to work the exact way you want it to because of that. They gotta be, if you're second player and the first player puts their ship down, well, you gotta be beyond distance 5 of whatever they put down. And if you wait and then they put squadrons down, then it just sucks up more of that board space where you're denied being able to put your ARC 170s if they're in the hyperspace rings. Um, where I've seen some use is ARC 170s with the Ahsoka Tano officer giving them snipe. So even though they are slow, even if they can only move the distance 2, well, they can snipe at distance 2 to 3. So like you're still getting some potential value out of them, especially if they're being backed by flight controllers and you're throwing 4 blue dice out. There's some reasonable play to be had there, I feel like. But again, you have to figure out a way to help mitigate that slow speed a bit. And Gar doesn't really. I mean, what gets their peltas get the support tech, but really the only pelta that you can put it on is the medical frigate. You could bring a victory and throw fighter coordination teams on them, I guess. The victory has the support team icon. Nothing else has it. Venators don't get it. Acclimators don't get it. So that is one important distinction to make between why bring a Venator over a victory or a victory over a Venator. They get the support movement. So you can, I know most people like slapping engine techs on it, but honestly, you know what's super scary? Is Victory 1 that's kitted out for entirely like anti-squadron killing, and then it's FTCing ARC-170s into your face every time. You know, it's like, it's slow, it's a slow boy, but like, is a dangerous slow boy. So like I said, with everything, you really have to focus on like, how are you going to maximize the effectiveness of these squadrons? I've seen a rare case too where somebody will bring like a Victory 1 with FTC on there, and they'll throw hyperspace rings on there. Where's that at? Because it's how many is it? Up to your squadron value. So at least you get 3. So if you do bring 3 ARC-170s, they'll get hyperspace rings. And I've seen some people put those like way out in front of their ship. And that way, when the Victory does move like at speed 2, for example, and gets at the appropriate distance, and then they're able to push those arcs out to get them in better position, like there's some play to be had there, I feel like. But again, you are spending a lot of points, like for example, to kit this Victory out if we want to throw flight controllers on there, if we want to do like ordnance pods, or if we want to do even like just ordnance pods, external racks, like, yeah, 94 points. If you did want to put Ahsoka on there, even 100 points. And I feel like, you know what? That's a good medium ship. I mean, look at the Assault Frigate Mark II. Typically, it's getting up there in about that point amount. So I feel like that is actually a very reasonable build for ARCs. But let's enough about ARCs. I think they're a great all-around fighter. I don't hate them. I typically don't run them just because, again, I don't like doing that whole game where I have to move things and move things and move things and move things. I feel like it just takes too much time, and I just don't like wasting time like that. I just want to be able to just do stuff and then be done with it. Let's talk about the only unique squadron that they get, and that is Oddball. And how do you know Oddball is unique? If you look in front of them, you'll see a little dot or a bullet point, signifies they are unique. Their point cost is 23 points. Some slight modification here for their anti-squadron armament. Otherwise, everything else is the same. So instead of a red dice, they get a black dice. And yeah, that's nice. I like that. Same keywords, bomber, counter 1. As a unique ace, they do get brace evade. So that's interesting, having the evade instead of double brace. I would have preferred double brace, but that's okay. It seems like maybe that was to offset their ability, which is, while attacking, if you moved during this activation, you may reroll up to 2 die. So, and we're gonna get to that wording, right? There's some intricacies in that wording we're gonna get to that can cause some confusion, and I'm gonna do the best I can to explain it as simply as I can. But in a nutshell, how does this ability work? Okay, did you move? Yes. If you are attacking, you get to reroll 2 dice. And that is powerful. Like for attacking squadrons, black is a 75% chance, so it's already really probable that you're just going to flat out roll hit on that. If you're attacking uniques, okay, I rolled both blues. None of them had the accuracies I need to lock a scatter. Re-roll both blues, see if I get that scatter, because you have a 75% chance on each die of at least just rolling another hit or rolling an accuracy. Could you roll critical? Sure, but like your probability of rolling into what you need is just so good. And then even if you're bombing, let's see, if you roll double accuracies, doesn't you pick them back up, roll those things again. You know, so Oddball is an excellent unique squadron, because like I said before, oh no, you can't Ahsoka unique squadrons, right? I can't remember. Yeah, non-unique. So you can't do Ahsoka on Oddball, unfortunately. Otherwise, that would be really good. But Ahsoka is still good on the ARC-170s. But what you can do is, you know, just he's still good at just like getting into the fray. Like he actually is like a true fighter bomber. He wants to mix it up in the combat because of that high hull value, and he doesn't care if he doesn't get the bomb ships, because he just wants to go around punching unique squadrons in the face with the high probability of accuracy and rolling damage. Like two, like if you are lucky, like 2 activations with Oddball, and you're able to kill a scatter ace, a 3-hole scatter ace, as long as you get something else in there that can pitch in at least a damage, right? All you need is just that plink damage, act damage, act damage, act damage. Because again, if you are rolling 2 damage, and you accuracy, the scatter, they can only brace twice. And then, like I said, if you just that consistent plink, and that's just what they're great at. All right, let's get into their wording and why there's a little bit of complications here. So specifically, it says while attacking if you moved during this activation. I don't know why the wording of this activation was used, because it is a gameplay loophole. Like, there is a distinction there when it says this activation, because it's not your activation. It should have said if you move during your activation. Then there would be no problems with this. It's just like with Anakin and Ahsoka. And this is where the problem comes in, is Ahsoka Tano. Is that when it says this activation, it does not mean necessarily their activation. Okay? Lots of things can cause Oddball to move outside of their activation, because it is somebody else's activation. So, like, for one example, if you have a ship that activates, and this is all based off of FAQ and everything else we already have from Yavaris. This has all been established years ago, so that's why I'm really surprised that this happened again. Is if a squadron moves during Yavaris' activation, the whole reason they had to do that whole errata to make it so squadrons couldn't move and attack if you used Yavaris was because, like, oh, well, they're not moving in their activation, they're moving in Yavaris' activation, and then this one, and then that, and then you could do this whole legal loophole where you could like get out of like the restriction of Yavaris way back when. You can't do that anymore, thank goodness. That's been taken care of. But now we've got this again. So again, during this activation does not mean during their activation specifically. It just means anybody's activation. If your opponent can move a squadron and somehow Oddball can move, well, that's their activation. This activation is their activation. It's not their activation. So I know that may sound crazy, like I'm talking crazy, but that's just how the game mechanics and the wording work. So let's actually get into the FAQ, or the clarification, I should say. Somebody says, hey there, Oddball's ability says, while attacking, if you move during this activation, you may reroll 2 dice. What does this activation explicitly mean, and how does it interact with move effects like fighter coordination teams and such? And how does Ahsoka Tano, the squadron, interact with this combo? Because Ahsoka Tano has an ability where if after they move, they can choose another squadron at distance 1. That squadron can perform an attack against an enemy at distance 1, even if it's already activated. So if Oddball was moved by like fighter coordination team, and then you move Ahsoka, and then Ahsoka chooses Oddball to do an attack, why, yes, they can use their reroll ability, because they didn't have to do it during their activation. They do it during Ahsoka's activation. So let's, again, read into it. Hello, great question. This activation means whatever is currently activated, either Oddball themselves or another ship or squadron. There is no short answer to this explanation, so I apologize in advance. The key point here is whom's activation this is when a squadron is moved by fighter coordination team. A squadron is not activated when moved by fighter coordination team, as it is currently the ship's activation. I'll lay out an example. Let's say we have a Pelta medical frigate that has a fighter coordination team equipped, and also Oddball and Ahsoka Tano squadron are near. After completing its maneuver, the Pelta medical frigate is at close to medium range of both Oddball and Ahsoka, and chooses to move Oddball first. So Oddball moves up to distance 1, then Ahsoka is moved up to distance 1, and then uses their card effect, because it's after they moved, to target Oddball. Oddball, if they're able to attack something, if they attack, they are able to use their card effect to reroll 2 dice, because Oddball moved this activation, as the activation is still the Pelta medical frigate. So even though they're attacking and they're doing something, that's not their activation. This is being done by effects, all done by effects. And so because of that, the activation, it's still the ship's activation, because Oddball, you didn't slide their slider or change it or activate them or unactivate them or do anything like that. Okay? So that's how that's able to work. So again, if you're a brand new player, this sounds like nonsense and you don't know what I'm talking about, and just that's just how it works. And that's how all the fact and clarification, like I said, this is all based off of years of clarification after clarification after clarification involving Yavaris with fighter coordination teams in this exact scenario. And we finally got that fixed. And then this comes out and it's all over again with the same thing. So it's just like, oh, I just really wish it would have said during this activation, and then we wouldn't have to worry about it. But, is this something you're going to see on a table? Man, maybe once every couple hundred games. Like, there's not a whole lot of people out there like trying to like do this. And I'm not going to say it's like gamey. It's not gamey. This is a legal effect. It's not something that is a gotcha as long as you understand the rules of how Armada works. I know some players feel that way, but obviously it's an official clarification. It tells you should know about it. You should be reading all of the clarifications for Armada, and if you don't know or how to do that, I have the handy dandy links right here that's got this all laid out. It lists all the clarifications from the AMG rules forums in a handy dandy document alongside the AMG rules reference guide. Everything's hyperlinked. You can go read up on it. It's very simple. Yeah, that's ARC-170s. Let me know, where have you found success? What are some other combinations you've come across that like, oh yeah, this actually makes them good? Or give some theories about why you still choose Y-wings over ARC-170s. Like I said, for myself personally, I just love the V19 Y-wing Wombo combo. I feel like that is still a very effective use of points, and a lot of squadrons you can use. But again, like I said, there's still a big argument to be made with just having ARC-170s. As long as you got a way to push them to get to where they're going, like, they are just so tanky and they hurt. All right. Appreciate you watching, and hey, I'll catch you next time.